We do want to turn our attention now to matters of an international level, but I guess it kind of kicked off from a club level this week. Declan Rice playing unbelievably against Southampton for West Ham this week, signing a new contract to the year 2024. The fact that people are looking ahead to the year 2024 is absolute madness. But worse than all of that,
what will the weather be like then?
Well, if the planet lasts until 2024, we'll be doing very, very well. So he signed that contract, but as I was about to say, worse than all of this has been the fact that notable English pundits have and Welsh pundits have started putting their hands up and saying this guy is pretty good. He's actually way too good to play for Ireland. And on beIN Sports this week, Paul Robinson was alongside Eoin Rush, and they had their say on Declan Rice.
Doesn't make rash challenges, times his challenges, and he's a modern day player. He keeps the ball and he can play centre half. I think probably as his career progresses, he'll find himself playing at a centre half role. But he's a product of the Chelsea academy. Gone to West Ham, he's playing more and more regular football. He only made his debut in 2017, but he's becoming a regular feature in this side, and he's becoming a key player as well because he's giving them a little bit more security to allow the others a little bit more freedom to go forward.
It says a lot about his quality that two international managers are vying for him to declare for England or Ireland right now.
Yeah, he's a ball player. You know, he reminds me a bit like Stones. You know, when he's at Everton and all, he's gone to Manchester City, paid big money for him, and I think Rice is most probably a better player. You know, at the age and all that, and I think he'll play international, whether it's for England or Ireland. You know, it's up to him to decide. But he's come on a lot.
Is he a centre back or is he centre midfielder?
For me, centre back. You know, I don't know. For me, he's a centre back. He can play the older midfield role as well. But to be at his best, for me, a ball playing centre back.
I think because of the problems that Manuel Pellegrini's got and his absentees through injuries, suspensions, illnesses, etc., he's been forced into a formation. He's been forced into playing a certain system. But Declan Rice shows his versatility to be able to play there because he's got the ability to defend, but he's also got the ability to retain possession, to keep possession. He breaks the play up and he keeps the possession for his team. He's a really talented young player. Which is the easier route into the England team? As a centre back or defensive midfielder? Centre midfielder? There's no easy route into the England team. You've got to be a top player. Do you have to be a top player to make the Ireland team then right now? Well, I think with McCarthy, I think they're looking to progress. And Ireland, what they've achieved the last 2 years has not been great. You know, so if he gets an early cap, you'd have to say Ireland because he'd walk into the Ireland team. Maybe wouldn't walk into the England team. But it depends up to him. Does he want to think now or does he want to think for the future? Good to hear Ireland getting ripped apart on beIN Sports. Nothing like it over the Christmas period.
He was quite kind to us, really, there, Eoin Rush. We weren't great the last couple of years.
Eoin Rush and Paul Robinson there speaking about Declan Rice. Another report this morning, John Fallon, saying that we're no longer confident in landing Declan Rice.
Yeah, because there's been a lot of toing and froing with different reports. I think it's only just a few days before Christmas that there seemed to be a perception that it was very close to an announcement that he was committing to Ireland, and now John Fallon would be quite well connected in both Irish football and across the water, and he's writing in Irish Independent today that England is very much part of the picture. I've always thought that because he's just of his quality. Like, I can't remember when Ireland last got a player of his quality through the ancestry rule. I think you're going back to maybe Andy Townsend. Now, because there's not, I think he's going to be a superb footballer. Like at 19, he's played over 50. You know, he's played 50 games for West Ham. He looks so composed and calm and intelligent on and off the ball. He looks a real leader. Like, that's why I can see people talking about, like Mick McCarthy's talked about him as a possible Ireland captain in the future. I'm sure he'll captain West Ham. I wouldn't be surprised if he captains England if he plays for them. And, you know, I think was something that tells you a lot about him at such a young age. Remember, I think it was the first game he was picked in midfield was against Liverpool. And he was taken off at half-time. Yeah. It was all at sea. All at sea, yeah. But he did struggle. But Manuel Pellegrini deserves credit for this as well. He put him back in. He benched him for a couple of games, put him back in central midfield. And he's thrived in a lot of games since then. So, you know, you mentioned before the break, I think, about looking forward what we'd like from Ireland in 2019. The only thing I'd like is Declan Rice. Yeah. Because I think that's the bigger picture. Like, qualifying for Euro 2020 is a short-term thing. But if you look in the next 10, 12 years, I think we really need somebody like him.
It could be such a game changer as well, because the Irish team has become associated with playing bad football basically for the last 2 managers, an anti-football style that, like, with the basically the implication being that we don't have the players to actually play it, and in order to get results the best thing we can do is make it a non-game like we did in Cardiff and hope for the best, like hope for a mistake from Ashley Williams or whatever. And if Rice came in as he would be our best midfielder probably since Roy Keane. We've really not had any notable powerhouse midfielder since Roy Keane, and his ability to keep the ball and just to drive that team and have a philosophy of youth, as well as, like, you know, just a proper kind of attitude towards playing football. What a difference that would make. And just reading John Fallon's article, he said it appears he's veering towards a switch to his homeland of England, but the FAI remain confident. England manager is believed to be, Gareth Southgate is believed to be increasingly hopeful. So this is very, very disappointing, because only a week ago it did seem that he was making the change, and I just think it would be a massive lift at a time when football is struggling in this country against, like, rugby's almost taken over in terms of the hearts and minds of the people. And a lot of people, if you talk to people now, they'll just be giving out about the Irish football team because they're worn down by how mediocre we've become. And I just hope Mick McCarthy can, I think he needs to play the card of you can be an Irish legend, whereas if he plays for England he'll be good, but he might just be a slightly more of another player. Maybe
he just missed Colton Sunday last Sunday, because that was when Mick McCarthy really did play that card, and he was like, this guy, he's got 100 caps right there before he's even made his competitive debut. It's interesting that you mentioned him in terms of Roy Keane, because obviously Paul Robinson described him as John Stones in terms of a ball-playing centre-back. It's very different how we view him over here to how he's viewed over there, that obviously they still see him as a great, great player, but if John Stones was Irish, would he be a central midfielder for us? I wonder that we kind of need him in a more prominent position, if I can use that phrase about a central midfielder as opposed to a centre-back. That it seemed that it was done and dusted, that he was going to be a midfielder, and now over the last week there's a lot of people saying, he'd be much better as a centre-half.
Yeah, well, you wouldn't remember this, Owen, before your time, but Paul McGrath played a lot of games in centre midfield for Ireland.
Very well.
Yeah, but because it needs must. Like, Ireland needed him in centre midfield, and he had Mick McCarthy and Kevin Moore, and so Jack Charlton and David O'Leary when he was in favour was part of the mix there. But there was often the case of even the Charlton era, where there was a lot of options, that square pegs were being pushed into maybe round holes. Like Ronnie Whelan was playing right back, Paul McGrath was in centre midfield, Mark Lawrence in centre midfield quite a lot as well. That we just, because midfield is so important, and Ireland were lacking there, that some of the better ball playing centre halves were pushed in there. That could be a similar situation with Rice.
I think, as well as that, we're not too badly off defensively. Like we're okay.
Ireland have quite a good defence.
Yeah, we're not. We don't really need Declan Rice as a back. But I asked Gary Breen last Saturday to name 4 players, I think, who have underperformed for Ireland, and the 4 players he named were all midfielders. Yeah, we just haven't. Like, Hendrick has.
Who were the 4 players?
So was Hendrick, Arthur.
James McCarthy, probably?
It was Brady, I think, and I can't remember the 4th one. Possibly, it was McCarthy, actually. In fairness to McCarthy, he's had so many injuries and probably hasn't really been suited maybe by the style of play we have, and he's not out of the picture yet, but you'd have to say he has the squiggle because he's nearly always injured. Declan Rice, we'll probably be playing 3 in midfield, and the holding midfield role we mentioned, Fernandinho, is a massively important position, and it's kind of where the action happens now, because all teams are basically flooding midfield now, and more players going through the middle. The conventional winger is becoming a thing of the past. So basically, Rice will become the complete pivot of our team, and you know, Duffy could become a real leader at the back behind him. I don't think I've no issue with him playing central midfield. I think that's the position that, if he really wants to be a world-class holding midfielder, he has all the talents to be that. Whether or not it'll be an Ireland jersey, I don't know.
I wonder, just, you mentioned that, the opportunity of playing central midfield. If you take this to kind of an absurd end point where he starts playing for England and he starts playing at centre-back and he starts playing very well, or he's a bit part player, he's back up to John Stones and whoever else. Yeah. And, you know, it takes him a couple of years to become one of the 3 lines and all that sort of thing. Whereas with Ireland, you know, he's at international level, he's becoming this top-class midfielder, and suddenly at club level people are looking at him saying, well, you're a top-class midfielder now. Midfielders tend to go for bigger money, and this whole idea of the commercial responsibility of being an England player as opposed to an Ireland player has been completely overblown, I think, over the past couple of months. That maybe he could flip it on its head entirely. That we give
interesting agenda you're setting there.
Yeah, I think he could get into.
I'm desperate.
Yeah, I think he could get into the England team, even the England midfield, quicker than a lot of people think. Because Eric Dyer has been their whole midfielder. Yeah, he's no superstar. It's a good point. Eric Dyer, you know.